Here's an unusual video that you don't see very often. Someone talking about sexuality in a negative term, or that it had a negative effect on their life. For me, and this is just my personal experience, and it's not about how others feel and what they went through, this is just me and what it did to me. I think that if I wasn't gay, I probably would have had a much easier life. I would have been very successful in so many ways, because all my life I spent so much time and effort trying to deal with my sexuality, to come out to friends and family, the repercussions. And then people ask you, when did you come out? And you just tell them whatever age you came out, but in reality you keep coming out every time you meet a new person, because people automatically assume that you're straight unless you're overtly camp, and they just take it for granted that you would be straight, and therefore you have to come out to every stranger every time they ask you, oh, do you have a wife? Do you have children? And you're like, no, I don't have a wife, I'm gay and I don't have children. In the past, obviously, if you were gay, there was no question of having children, but that's changed. The new generation in this time and age is very lucky, because they're growing up in this era of a lot more openness, and people are happy to talk about sexuality, and it's on TV and in films, and there's a lot of coverage, even though we're stepping backward these days with all these restrictions that are being put upon schools and things not to discuss LGBT issues. To be honest, I grew up in an environment which was extremely macho. It was very, very straight. There was no concept. I didn't know what being gay was until I was 16, and it was a very sheltered environment. So if anyone thinks that by teaching someone things about sexuality is going to make them gay or straight, I think they're just absolutely bonkers. And because if that was the case, I would have been as straight as they come. And despite of everything that I went through in my life, and all the pressures I had on me not to be gay, I'm still gay. So it's who you are, and it can't be changed. But I have to say that I've had a very, very difficult life and numerous difficult experiences because of my sexuality, and unfortunately that's how it is, and it's not something that I can change, for me at least. And many other people go through this in their life. My family didn't speak to me for many, many years. I had really bad reactions from my parents about my sexuality, and overall I felt very alone and secluded, and I wished that I wasn't gay, because it would have made my life so much easier. And to be honest, there were times where I thought about what I could do to change it, and I knew, because I was smart enough and enlightened enough to know that it's not something that can be changed by treatment, so I didn't go down that route. But I spent, a good 10 years of my life fighting and battling my sexuality, from the age of I'd say 21 until 30, where I was really struggling and trying to come to terms with it and getting people to accept me for who I was. And I could have spent that time focusing on, my studies, my career, my future, and subsequently only 5% of the population is gay, out of which there's a very small minority of people who could be your type, and therefore finding a suitable partner in the gay world is like finding a needle in a haystack, because it's just it's impossible. And maybe that's not a good term to use or phrase to use for it, but it's if I was straight, I would have more choices of women, because there's more of straight people in this world, and they would have I would have found someone and it would have been easy to just settle back into my life, have kids and a life. And for whatever reason, I assumed that if I work at this in my own way, I can have a normal life with a male partner just the same way that straight people do. Unfortunately, the problem is that as a gay person, you struggle through so many things in life and you're kind of broken. And then you meet another person who struggled through life and is kind of broken. So you're two people who are broken getting together to build something that could just be normal. And it's very hard. So I've had 3 long-term relationships, and unfortunately they all ended in one way or another. And I think if I was straight, I probably would not have had any of those issues, because I would have just married a woman, had kids and led a normal life, whatever normal is. But the point is, it had a massive impact on my life and it damaged me. And in some ways, I mean, if you do psychoanalysis, people will say, well, it made you into who you are and made you X, Y, Z. Yeah, all of those things, but my whole life has been one long struggle. And I think that being gay and the sexuality played a huge part in that, to make my struggles even worse than they would have been otherwise. I lost numerous friends and family members. It's just people, if I think people said something to your face, it's probably easier than what they don't say, and they hold it in their own heads and walk away with it. So yes, it's very important to highlight to children and people and normalize it, because if you don't, then this ongoing issue will continue and impact people's lives like mine. If the society was very accepting and everything was okay, perhaps me and my partners would have been okay and mentally stable, and would have had long-term relationships, and I would have had children and all the things that I wanted. The other thing is, a lot of people seem to think that sexuality is a choice. Like I said, I grew up in a very macho, masculine environment. It wasn't a choice, and I'm not camp, I'm not effeminate, but I'm gay. It's an emotional thing. I fall in love with men, and it's not about sex. I mean, I find horses beautiful animals, but I don't fancy them. It's the same thing with women. I see them, they are beautiful, but doesn't mean I want to sleep with them. And it's because of the emotional connections that we have with a certain gender, and even in that gender we have specific types. And if homosexuality wasn't created by nature or God or whatever is out there, then the society and also the human evolution is all about survival of the fittest. So as homosexuals don't reproduce over time, they would have diminished and disappeared. The fact that straight people keep making gay babies means that this is how nature intends. And I think it's because of our culture and time and civilization that we live in, it doesn't really work. And it's getting better, but I think if, like in the Roman times or the Greek times, when sexuality wasn't a big issue, they just had sex and that was it. Gay, straight, all of those things were not a big deal. I think it's the religions that came in and tried to exert their powers and created these divides and boundaries between various people. It's just all about love in the end. You love someone and you want to spend your life with them, and that's the bottom line. So yeah, I thought I should make this video. I've been thinking about it for a long time, because there's so many videos in this ether of YouTube and the internet that talk about how amazing it is to be gay and how you should come out and all of that. No one really talks about the fact that coming out isn't that easy, and it's not a one-off thing. It's an ongoing process, and it is hard, and our lives are tough. People may not appreciate it, but every time I replaced the word he for she in my younger years, I was wasting so much energy in my workplace and my life where I was substituting words, and I was thinking of how to make sure that anything that I say doesn't out me unintentionally in front of strangers or work colleagues, because I didn't want them to think of me differently. And then when people make remarks and things about others that impacts you, even though you may not feel it, but subconsciously it goes in, which is why I think discrimination against anyone of any gender, race, background, skin color, all of that is very damaging, and it's cancerous to our society, because it does subconscious and psychological damage to people that takes years and years and years to fix. I think if I hadn't had a therapy, I probably wouldn't have been able to make this video and openly talk about it, because this is kind of like outing yourself to the world. But you get to a point where you stop caring what other people think, and you think, I am who I am and I don't care. If you don't like me, that's your problem. Go find someone else. So I hope this video is of some use to someone out there, because I'm sure there's plenty of people who are going through this. I put the title here saying my sexuality ruined my life. I don't really mean it in that way. I just wanted to get people's attention. It did ruin my life, but it also made my life in some ways. So there's a balance. In hindsight, it's always 20/20. You can look at things and think they could have been different, but maybe if I was straight, I would have had 3 divorces and 6 children and a lot of alimony and other things to deal with. But so yeah, who knows? We don't know. Maybe in a parallel universe, Ethan is straight and has a normal life. Thanks for watching.